Yo, what's up everyone? Welcome back to my first video after a month. The NFL draft is only just a few days away, so today I'll be giving you guys my final first round mock draft with my predictions of what I think will happen. So let's start with the Raiders, the most obvious pick in the draft. The odds from DraftKings clearly favor Fernando Mendoza. Quarterback position is very valuable, the Raiders need it, and we've known from the start that they've definitely been targeting Fernando Mendoza, and I'm sure they probably haven't considered much else. Now with the New York Jets, previously when I was looking at the odds, David Bailey and Arvell Reese were tied, and in my opinion, it really comes down to how much trust they have in Aaron Glenn, because to me, Aaron Glenn, he's kind of on the verge of being fired, so he needs to prove something. And if you want a guy who's going to be slightly more prepared, specifically in the pass rush game, you take David Bailey. However, I think they look towards their future, and when I'm looking at the odds now, it slightly favors Arvell Reese. Not to mention, they also did cancel a top 30 visit with David Bailey, maybe hinting at an Arvell Reese pick. And so I think they're going to prioritize their future rather than getting maybe what their coach wants with Arvell Reese. Next up for the Cardinals, I think they're either considering an offensive line or most likely an edge. In most mock drafts lately, you've probably seen them going after an edge, and I think it's going to be between David Bailey and Arvell Reese. As Arvell Reese was taken with pick 2, we're going to take David Bailey with pick 3 for the Cardinals. With pick 4, the top 3 guys in odds to be selected here are David Bailey, who's off the board, Sonny Styles, and Jeremiah Love. I don't see them taking Sonny Styles. However, I definitely see them getting help for Cam Ward. Jeremiah Love is the best player in this class, and so if you want to get a guy who's going to have the biggest offensive impact and be able to help Cam Ward the most, that's your guy. At pick 5, most people say it's between Sonny Styles and Caleb Downs, and they can add on Francis Mauigoa and Jeremiah Love. Of course, Jeremiah Love is gone now. You would probably think that I'd take Sonny Styles or Caleb Downs, but John Harbaugh has expressed some interest in definitely taking care of the trenches, and I think a way you can do that is by taking Francis Mauigoa. My reasoning why I think they're going to make this pick is because safety and linebacker typically isn't as valued, as it's not that important of a position as an offensive line, which is why you see offensive linemen being taken slightly higher than you may think. So that's why I'm going to take Mauigoa for the Giants at 5. At 6, there's been a lot of noise that the Browns might want to trade down, and that's exactly what I'm going to have them do. And I'm going to have the Dallas Cowboys trading up. Of course, they have 2 first-round picks, so they have more ammunition to make this move. Knowing Jerry Jones, he's not afraid of ever making moves, so a realistic trade package that I can see, inspired by Mel Kiper Jr., who also had this exact same move, is 12 and 20 for 6 and 39. Although it's a slight overpay for the Cowboys, they're still getting an early second, and if they can get a top-tier guy, like maybe Sonny Styles or Caleb Downs, it'd definitely be worth it. And with this pick, I'm going to have the Cowboys take Sonny Styles, as he's the most athletically gifted player in this class, and the Cowboys really need defensive help. Looking at the best 2 defenders available of what most people would say, it's between Caleb Downs and Sonny Styles, but I think linebacker is slightly more valuable. Safety does typically fall, as we've seen with Kyle Hamilton back then, so that's why I'm going to have them taking Sonny Styles. The favorites to be picked for the Commanders are Carnell Tate, Jeremiah Love, Sonny Styles, and Jordan Tyson. That's your top 4. And I think the Commanders are going to take Carnell Tate. I damn well know that teams love taking wide receivers from Ohio State because most of the time they're definitely going to be hitting. And they're also going to be ready from day one, as Ohio State probably has the best wide receiver program out of any college. And so with Terry McLaurin and Deebo Samuel getting kind of older, I think this is a smart move for them to make. Originally with this pick at number 8, I had Ruben Bain going to the Saints. However, after Jordan Tyson's pro day, I think he really impressed these New Orleans Saints scouts, and the odds reflect that, as they actually moved Jordan Tyson to the most favored player to be picked at the spot. And so I agree with them, because I think teams are getting much more comfortable after seeing Tyson run in the pro day, and it kind of limits some of his injury issues. Funny enough, the guy who I had the Chiefs taking was Jordan Tyson, and because I had the Saints taking Ruben Bain, I think it's basically a flip-flop here. The Chiefs really need edge, and Ruben Bain is a guy who's probably going to fall just because of his short arms, even though, in my opinion, he's better than Arvell Reese and David Bailey, and so I think it would be a no-brainer pick for the Chiefs to take Ruben Bain here at 9. At 10, the favorite to be selected here is Caleb Downs, and I absolutely agree with that. You could consider taking Mansour Delane, who's second favorite for this pick. However, I'm going to take Caleb Downs because I think he's a better player, and And for a defense that needs the guys who will contribute the most, Caleb Downs is probably the player you should bet on more than Mansour Delane. At 11, originally I was considering offensive line for the Dolphins. However, because Mansour Delane falls in this situation and the Dolphins are in desperate need of a wide receiver or cornerback, of course, which is what Mansour Delane is, we're going to take Mansour Delane, who has one of the safest backgrounds and should be able to contribute for this defense right away. At 12 here, after the trade down, the Browns obviously are most likely probably going to take an offensive tackle or a wide receiver. I wouldn't rule out edge if, for example, Ruben Bain were to fall in the spot, but of course he doesn't. And so if you're taking a wide receiver, I'd take Makai Lemon. However, I'm going to take Spencer Fano. As of the guys available, Spencer Fano has really good versatility, and for a Browns offensive line that could use a guy who can play multiple spots, which I think Fano can play the center spot, the guard spot, or the offensive tackle spot, I think with the value of something like that, the Browns are going to take Fano with this pick. Now with the Rams here at 13, as you can see, they did change their logo. I kind of like it. You guys can let me know what you guys think. But with this pick, I think they're going to get a third guy just because Devontae Adams is older and there's been some Puka Nacua controversy over the offseason. And I think the guy who will be able to contribute the most of the guys available is definitely going to be Makai Lemon. This offense is already really good, and I can't imagine how good it will be with a guy like Makai Lemon, who's very versatile and reminds me of JSN, who of course the Seahawks have. With the top 3 wide receivers off the board, I think the Baltimore Ravens are probably going to be considering offensive line. And if we look at the board, I'm not really a big fan of the tackles here. And I think the Ravens would think the same way, as they took Tyler Linderbaum a few years ago pretty high, and he was an interior offensive lineman. I think they're going to do the exact same thing here with Vega Ioane. It makes way too much sense, as he's a guy who's so pro-ready, has a great mentality, and he can block both the run and the pass game. He's a great all-around player. The only really knock on him is that he's not a fantastic athlete, but the rest of his game makes up for that, and I think he's a top 10 player. And the Ravens will see that too, and they'll pick him at 14. With the Tampa Bay Buccaneers here at 15, the 2 guys I'm considering is Akeem Mesidor, who's obviously an older prospect, but he's a really polished edge who will probably be able to produce much quicker than the guy I'm also thinking about, which is Jermod McCoy. However, I think Jermod McCoy's pro day really helped him, and it definitely shot up his stock. I can't see him falling too far, even with some injury concerns. You look at his freshman and sophomore tape, it looks like a top 5 player to me in this class, and I think the Buccaneers would value that potential over getting a 25-year-old, even if you'd get a proven commodity who'd be really good. And so that's why they're going to take Jermod McCoy. Here for the Jets, after they took Arvell Reese, you could consider quarterback Ty Simpson. However, I don't think they're going to draft him this high, and I think they're going to prioritize getting some help for Geno Smith right now, and obviously a new future quarterback that they'll find in this draft or in the future. Looking at the wide receiver board, the best guy available is Omar Cooper. Cooper is a guy who can play any role. He's very versatile, and he's specifically a great playmaker that could pair really well with a guy like Garrett Wilson. With the Lions here, I think they're going to be considering trenches, and a player I think they love is Caden Proctor. Proctor is a very heavy guy, which means he has a ton of power, and you would question his athleticism, but he has shockingly good athleticism. He also, even though it says he's an offensive tackle, I think he's more likely to be a guard, and for this Lions team that could use either or, I think they're going to take Caden Proctor for that versatility compared to Miller, Lomu, or Freeling, who are all guys who are strictly basically offensive tackles. As Harrison Smith is very old, Tiedemann has the range to play honestly any role. He's a very smart player, and I think he'd fit great in this Vikings defense. For the Panthers here, I think they're going to be considering wide receiver, offensive tackle, or tight end. Based on what their front office is saying, I think it's likely that they go and get a pass catcher. Looking at the wide receivers left on the board, there's no one who really strikes me as worthy of getting taken in this pick. However, a guy who kind of bridges the gap from an offensive tackle and a wide receiver spot is Kenyon Sadiq, who's a freak athlete who has a ton of potential, and he's already shown great flashes in the blocking and passing game, and so I think that's why they'll take him here at 19. For the Browns here at 20, many people have been saying in general in their drafts they're going to be getting an offensive lineman and a wide receiver, and so I think that's what they're going to do here. And most people agree that Denzel Boston is slightly better than Casey Concepcion, which has his draft stock a little higher, and so that's why I'm going to take Denzel Boston as the wide receiver they take at 20. For the Steelers here, for me, I don't think they're going to take Ty Simpson, as it seems unlikely based on what the people in the industry are saying. So I think they're going to go offensive line or wide receiver. Looking at the offensive linemen available, these guys are all offensive tackles, and they really need more of an offensive guard who can replace Isaac Seumalo. Given that Broderick Jones is still there, I think they trust him enough to be a starter for next year, and they really need a wide receiver, as we learned from last year. Even if they did get Michael Pittman, him and DK Metcalf are redundant players, and so I think you need a guy who's a playmaker and can be given the ball in screen passes in a heavy pass offense from new head coach Mike McCarthy. Looking at the board, Casey Concepcion is the best player available, and he's the guy who gets you that the most. For the Chargers, they're really in a big need of trenches, and most people have been mocking offensive guard, but I think they're going to prioritize value rather than maybe reaching on someone who's more of a second-round player. And so a guy who I think fits their defense really well is Peter Woods. Peter Woods is definitely worthy of a first-round pick to me, and I think his pass rush upside and its potential overall will be really appeasing to defensive head coach Jim Harbaugh. The Eagles love Georgia players, and I think they're actually going to stick with A.J. Brown as a wide receiver, so I think that removes their need of taking a wide receiver here. And I think looking at their offense, struggled more last year, they should definitely consider an offensive tackle, as Lane Johnson is older. As I said, they love Georgia players, and Monroe Freeling is a guy who can definitely use a little bit of learning, as he's a younger player, so he has some of that boomer bust in him. However, learning under a guy like Lane Johnson, I think, is a great place to go to, and it makes a ton of sense for the Eagles to boost their offensive line. For the Browns here, I did say they could consider taking Ruben Bain, and here I'm going to have them taking his teammate Akeem Mesidor. The reason why I have them taking Akeem Mesidor is that they definitely need some depth at the edge rush position behind Myles Garrett, and a guy 100% can produce and can be a great number 2, very scary number 2, assuming you're keeping Myles Garrett, is Akeem Mesidor. For the Bears here, it's obviously got to be a defensive player, and the guy I've seen mocked to him a lot, and a guy who's definitely worth of being taken in this range, is Emmanuel McNeill-Warren. McNeill-Warren would act as a great box safety for this team, and could be a good strong safety pairing with free safety Kobe Bryant, who they got in free agency. For Bills here, they're a team that could definitely consider taking wide receiver, but as the top 6 guys have gone, I think they're going to take a defensive player. Last year, their defense in the run game was maybe one of the worst. I can't remember if it was the worst, but I know it was towards the bottom. Their pass defense was actually pretty good, so we definitely got to prioritize a run defender. And so the guys who I'd consider is C.J. Allen at linebacker, who's a great leader, and he's very smart. Caden McDonald, who's another pro-ready nose tackle, who's specifically good at defending the run. And finally, Keldrick Folk, who's a younger player, but he's still really good at defense and has a lot of upside to work with. Between these guys, it was a hard decision for me, but I know that NFL teams care about size, and the size profile of Keldrick Folk, who's 6'6" and 280 pounds, I think is going to be the most appealing to the Buffalo Bills, which is why I'm going to have them take Keldrick Folk. For the 49ers here at offensive tackle, with Trent Williams getting older, I think that's the spot they're definitely going to go. And between the 3 guys, Maxi Inachor, Caleb Lomu, and Blake Miller, I think Caleb Lomu would be the best, as his athleticism definitely fit the 49ers zone blocking scheme better than Blake Miller and Inachor. So I'm going to have them take Caleb Lomu. For the Texans, you could have them go interior offensive line, which I think they're definitely going to look for with their early second-round pick from the Laramie Tunsil trade, pick 38. However, here I think they're going to prioritize value and a position that they can need some depth at, and a guy who I know 100% can step in and play really good, who's also in the similar area, is Caden McDonald. Like I said before, Caden McDonald is an extremely good run-stopping nose tackle, who I know is definitely pro-ready, and for a team who's in Super Bowl contention, I think it's important to draft players who will contribute right away, and Caden McDonald is exactly that. for the Chiefs here, we took Ruben Bain, edge rusher, and now they did trade away Trent McDuffie, so I think they'd definitely be considering corner here. And because Terrell did have his injury, I think he's going to fall a little more in the draft than he probably deserves. And the guy who I know Steve Spagnuolo would love in his press man defense would be Colton Hood, who's specifically a great man corner who would fit perfectly in this scheme. Now for the Dolphins here at 30, they're in need of a lot of players. Even though they have a lot of draft picks, I think this is the move that the Cardinals make to get Ty Simpson. A trade for him would probably look something like this: 34 and 36 for 30 and 87, or maybe 75, but I think it's going to take a little more to get into the first round. The reason why the Cardinals do it at pick 30 is because I don't think the Patriots are going to want to trade down, and also Seahawks probably going to want to help a division rival. The reason why they trade up for Ty Simpson in the first round is because they get the 5th-year option, which obviously for a quarterback in the quarterback market, where they're paid a ton of money, more than other positions, is very valuable, and it gives you another year to be able to evaluate Ty Simpson in the future. For the Patriots here, they could consider defense or the trenches, which did get exposed in the Super Bowl. And a guy I've seen clips of Mike Vrabel coaching, and I definitely think he loves his potential, is Maxi Iheanacho. Maxi Iheanacho has a really cool story. He's only played 4 years of football. Even though he's slightly of an older prospect, I think he's 23, and could be viewed as a developmental tackle. His upside under a great head coach like Mike Vrabel, I think, is a smart pick to make here. Finally, with pick 32, the Seahawks, as they have 4 picks, I think they're going to trade down, and they're going to look for a trade partner. Trade partner that I think would definitely be considered and moving up here is the Kansas City Chiefs. John Schneider, the Seahawks GM, is known for trading down, and the Chiefs GM is known for making trade-up moves, so their philosophies fit well here to make this trade. And I'm going to have the Seahawks taking a slight overpay, as I think they're slightly more desperate for picks, which would make it a little bit easier for the Chiefs to trade up. And the player I have the Chiefs trading up for is a position that they definitely need. You could say wide receiver, but the board has fallen a little bit, and I don't think there's a guy of value here. I'm going to have them take the last offensive tackle before a big fall to Caleb Tiernan, who's probably a top 75 player, in Blake Miller. Blake Miller is a guy who has 4 years of experience and has really good technique. His only weakness is that he's not as strong. However, I think he'll be able to build that over time and become a solid starter in the league. Here's the review of what I think will happen. Please let me know your thoughts on this mock draft. And if you enjoy this video, leave a like and subscribe. Finally, I just wanted to say I'm planning on doing an NFL draft pre-draft stream, and I'll probably give my reactions to the first 15 or so picks, which starts at 6 Eastern time. Besides that, I'll see you guys in the next episode, which should be my top 35 players in the NFL draft. See you guys.